Greetings everyone, this is the Questing GM. So I'm back with another video for my part of my RPG Study Hour series. And this series is all focused on the Star Trek Adventures Quick Start Guide, as you can see here. This is the second video of the series, and I will be continuing my study of the Star Trek Adventures Quick Start Guide. And in the last video, we just did a breakdown of the Quick Start, the 33-page Quick Start, and a breakdown of what are the separate videos that I'll be doing for the series. Ended it with the introduction areas about what you need to play, some of the setting informations, and what themes of the game, and also some new mechanics that may be involved that to play the game, especially in terms of the dice that's being used. So for this second video, we will be entering into the basic operations chapter, starting with the character section. Now, it's a very, as you can see here, the character section doesn't really isn't really entirely very long, and it's only like it only builds up to about half a page. But this video will not only be just looking at the character rules, but we'll also be trying to compare that with the pre-generated characters that comes with the game. So there will be a lot of back and forth. Hopefully, after studying the basic character rules, and then we see how is that applied into the characters themselves. So let's get started and let's see what the character rules or the basic operations chapter begins. So the following section covers the core rules of Star Trek Adventures, which will be used throughout the rest of the game. These rules are the foundation for the other rules in the game, and every player should have a basic understanding of these concepts during play. That's basically basic operations, basically the basic rules. So going into the characters section. All right. Each character has several statistics indicating their competency with different physical and mental attributes, as well as their expertise in various disciplines. So our keywords here, we have attributes, and then we have disciplines. All right. Attributes. A character has 6 attributes ranging from 7 to 12. That's an interesting number. I'm only wondering how that is derived, but maybe they'll get to that. Maybe this is something that's explained further in the core rules, and it's at this point in the quick start. There's not much point in questioning where this number comes from. But we'll look into the pregens later on to see if anyone, what are the ranges of the attributes score kept in. So our 6 attributes are: control, a character's self-discipline, coordination, and fine motor skills; daring, a character's bravery and quick thinking or acting without hesitation; fitness, a character's physical strength and stamina; insight, a character's understanding about their environment and other people; presence, a character's personality and ability to command attention and respect; reason, a character's logical and problem-solving abilities. So in one way or another, this sort of becomes the this is just a renamed version of the 6 ability scores from Dungeons and Dragons, but obviously there's no much real purpose of carrying those assumptions into the Star Trek Adventure games, because it uses a different engine altogether. So they may be it's not useful to use the comparisons, although maybe you could use that comparisons to make for explaining it to your players, but as far as understanding is concerned, I think I much rather stick to using the explanation that is provided here for the 6 scores. And as you can see, they're not even in the same order that D&D is used to do it. So it's going to take a while for me to get used to remembering these 6 attributes, but hopefully I'll get familiarized with them once I start flipping through the pregens. Alright, so we have the attributes and disciplines. So we're going into disciplines. A character has 6 disciplines based on their training in Starfleet. Command, a character's ability to direct crew or lead a team. Con, a character's ability to pilot a starship or ground vehicle. Security, a character's ability to defend themselves or conduct investigation. Engineering, a character's ability to resolve mechanical or technical problems. Science, a character's knowledge and understanding of the universe. Medicine, a character's ability to heal others and treat illnesses. Alright, so we have 6. So I guess these are basically 6, as it's called, disciplines. specializations that that a character may be trained in. If this sort of reminds me of a little bit of what was talked about in the introduction area, I think. Yeah, you see, the best of the best. You are either commanders, pilots, scientists, engineers, and doctors. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there's only 5 roles to play. That is assumed in the Federation, but there are 6 disciplines that comes into play for that a character can be specialized in. So there isn't any real explanation of what, how disciplines and attributes are tied together, which I hope it will be something that will be explained at some point, but I feel like maybe we shouldn't get ahead of ourselves. So there's one more area that's talk about focuses. Focuses represent specialized subjects about which the character has more precise knowledge or experience. These focuses can be any topic and apply to any attribute plus discipline combination where the focus is relevant to the task. Okay, this doesn't really explain a lot, so I'm not sure how are we supposed to make sense of how attributes and disciplines are connected together, and then how they're connected with focus. All right, so but anyways, let's just have a basic idea of what the focus are, because it can be any topic. And I guess it's better to have to say any topic and then give a list of examples, rather than just saying any topic and then without any examples, and then you sort of, the GMs has to sort of like make things up along the way. So astronavigation, astrophysics, cybernetics, diplomacy, espionage, EVA, which I have no idea what it stands for, exotectonics, genetics, hand phasers, hand-to-hand combat, health operations, infectious diseases, quantum mechanics, shipboard tactical systems, spatial phenomena, transporters and replicators, virology, warp field dynamics, and xenobiology. So I guess this is a good starting list to start with any. I'm not sure, does the core rules provide any additional focuses, examples, or is there a actual comprehensive list of focuses? And I'm not sure what authority, like on whose authority can these focuses be created. Is this something that's created by the player to create a focus and then say that they specialize in a particular field, or is this something that the GM sort of gives a long list of players and say just pick from this list of focuses? All right, so that actually pretty much covers up the character section of the basic operations rules. But nothing seems to make any sense at the moment in terms of we know what they are, what makes up a character, attributes, disciplines, and focuses, but there's no explanation at this point of what are their connection to each other, which I believe it's probably going to be something that's going to be explained maybe in the further sections of the rules. So this might be a very challenging section to talk about in a single video, because it seems like we are only introduced to concepts, but we are not introduced to the mechanics. So let's see if we go into the pregens and see is there any clues or leads that we can find out into understanding these character rules of attributes, disciplines, and focuses. So let's have a look at the pregens. So coming to the pregens, we have basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, yeah, there we have 6 pregens: the first officer, the con officer, chief of security, chief engineer, science officer, and medical officer. As you may notice, these do not I believe each of these should correspond to each of the disciplines. That would be command, con, security, engineer, science, and medicine. Yep, I think that corresponds to each of the disciplines. So I will be sort of expecting each of these pregens to be taking up one of the disciplines. So let's start with the first officer. Now the cool thing about the pregens is that they are only one page, so they're not really all that complicated in trying to decipher them. But it's also good that it's not complex as a system. And that may be just only for the quick start. It may go on to a different level of complexity once we go into the core rules. But let's just focus on the pregens from the quick start guide level itself. So we have first officer, Commander Lenaris Loss, first officer. So we have traits. Now we have no idea what traits is because this was not explained at all. We have no, there was no explanation what a trait is. We have values, also not explained, but basing from here, I guess we're looking at something like some sort of personality traits similar from Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, but it's also interesting. I'm hoping that this has some sort of mechanical consequence or significance in later parts of the rules that maybe has something to do with some motivation or something like that, because this is a mechanic that really encourages roleplay, but only if it's mechanized to a certain level that incentivizes to use these values rather than just for it to be, you know, additional fluff on the role-playing side. So coming down, we see the attributes and the disciplines and the focuses. So if we look at attributes, we have control, fitness, presence, daring, insight, and reason. Our lowest here is at fitness, our highest is at presence. Do remember the numbers is supposed to range between 7 and 12. So what we have here is actually a pretty much balanced character in terms of having his daring, reason, control, and insight above the 7 and 8s, and then we have presence obviously being the highest stat for this character, which is 11. Then we come down to disciplines. I think there was no explanation of what the range is it to expect for the disciplines. So we can see that the highest number here is command at 5, and the lowest here being medicine at 1. But we don't know how these numbers are derived from, and we don't understand the significance of, you know, how good are these numbers at this point in time. So we can only these are all only we can only understand this at face value, and there's really nothing much to go on about it. Okay. Although based on the focus rules, we do notice that there is supposed to be some sort of combination this happens. So I'm guessing this maybe if you have presence of 11 and then you have a command of 5, then you add them up to form a 16 or something, and 16 of what, and what does that 16 mean is something that we have no idea at this point yet. So moving on, we have the focuses. So we have guerrilla tactics, diplomacy, survival, composure, Starfleet protocol, 3D chess. So we have some of the focuses that were not mentioned in the examples that was given. I think the easiest one would be 3D chess. Guerrilla tactics, I think, was not mentioned. Composure was also probably not mentioned. Survival, I don't think was mentioned. The only thing that rings a bell is actually Starfleet protocol. So it seems to me that it's sort of expected for a character to have focuses that is way outside the range of examples given, and maybe even more so that this is supposed to be really a really open idea for players and GM. So I'm a bit curious, how is this going to be communicated, and how is this going to be moderated between GM and player? Like, at what point do we agree what is acceptable as a focus, and if so, how is the GM supposed to utilize focuses during their game? What will be very interesting and what would be very cool if the focuses that are mentioned in these pre-gens are also mentioned in the pre-made adventure that comes with the Quickstart guide. Although I probably wouldn't have my hopes up, but that would be really cool if there is a challenge or there's an encounter that actually uses 3D chess at some point. Alright, and then we come into looking at talents. So talents is also something that was totally not explained at all, but based on a glance, it looks like it's, you know, the special abilities of the character. How is it derived? We're also not very sure. It could be a trait thing, it could be a class thing. We are not sure yet at this point. So at this point, I think we can only understand talents just by reading whatever the text says and then just taking it as it is, and then without questioning the source of the text, which I have a high suspicion that is actually going to be explained in the core rules. So executive officer, where another character in communication with you spends determination. So determination is another mechanic that was mentioned but never really explained. You may spend 3 momentum immediately to let that character regain their point of spent momentum. You may okay, so you can spend 3 momentum to let them regain their point of spent momentum. How much is that? We are not. I think it's not really clearly explained yet, but I'm guessing that numbers will make more sense, or that number will appear once you understand the mechanics of determination and momentum. All right, so that's executive officer. Coming down to advisor. Whenever you assist another character using your command discipline, the character being assisted may reroll 1d20. So I'm assuming there is an action called assist another character, and then you're using your command discipline, which at this point here is at 5. Any character being assisted may reroll 1d20. So I'm guessing a rerolling of 1d20 is supposed to be a big deal. Alright, tough. Whenever you avoid an injury, notice here the italics. So this is probably another mechanic that is going to be explained, maybe in the conflict section. The cost is decreased by 1 to a minimum of 1. So we have no idea what the cost is. This is probably going to be explained once we go into the conflict section. So nothing useful here. Strong fag. I don't know how to pronounce it. This could be a tricky lore thing. You have unwavering faith in the prophets. Whenever you attempt a task, the capitalized T also refers to a mechanic, which is going to be the next section that we'll be dealing with in the next RPG study hour video. To resist being coerced or threatened, you reduce the difficulty of that task by 1. So we are seeing the terms like task and difficulty coming into play, but at this point it means nothing to us. Constantly watching. When you attempt a task to detect danger or hidden enemies, to reduce the difficulty by 1. Alright. So we're looking at the rest of the stats. We have determination, start with 1, and then we have 3 boxes. So I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a box to indicate how many you have, or is this a box that you're supposed to check off to see how many you have left. You have stress, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. This is like 9 stress. I'm not sure if this is consistent or the same or standard for every other character, which will be something we will be taking a look. And then we have resistance 0. So none of these are explained even in the character section of the rules, and I have a feeling it's something to do with the conflict part of the rules. So it's actually kind of not. It's kind of a bit frustrating to see that, you know, in the character section, they do not fully explain all the things that you're expected to find within the character sheet. Now I have seen other quick starts that actually does this, where the character section of the rules explains everything that you're supposed to expected to see in the character sheet, and then there will be a lot of repeats when they go further deep into mechanics that's related to, you know, a particular skill or a particular ability. So it's a little bit frustrating, especially when I'm doing a video, you know, focus on one section of rules before the next. So at this point, there's really not much help that we can get even by just reading through the pregens. And I'm not even sure, like, you know, especially things like, you know, subjective or soft rules such as traits and values that uses this sort of subjective sort of rating of mechanics isn't explained in the character section. Then it begs the question of where will these parts be explained in the rules. The worst that can happen is actually none of these actually appear anywhere in the quick start, and that means these sections of as a learner of the rules, these sections just becomes, you know, distractions and red herrings that just shouldn't be bothered because you can't find an explanation for them. I hope that's not the case, but these are some really red flags that I would consider seeing when there is a little flimsy connection between application and introduction in theory. Alright, so we're going to go into attacks. Unarmed strike, melee, 3 challenge dice. Challenge dice as we've already explored in the introduction section. Knockdown, size 1H, non-lethal. And then phaser type 2, range 5 challenge dice, size 1H. So I'm guessing these are some kind of weapon traits or something of some kind. I hope these will be explained or provided with a table of some kind in the conflict rules, and also size 1H, which is also an explanation that probably deserves, you know, something that deserves more explanation. Non-lethal and charge. So basically, attacks, it feels to me like it's made up of probably, you could say, four components. We have the range, melee, and range. We have the challenge dice number. We have the traits. And we have the size, and then we have a final a property or property of some kind. And we're looking at the equipment is combat tricoded. Okay, this is also another big pet peeve of mine when it comes to quick starts, is that if you're gonna have a include equipments within a character sheet, make sure that you explain you have somewhere in the rules that explains what these equipments do, because most often than not, especially in my experience with some quick starts, some equipments are included in the character sheet, but there is no idea what it does whatsoever, and then it all becomes this dangerous guessing game when the players will start asking questions like what exactly does a combat do, and what does a tricorder do, and can it do the things that they assume it's going to do, and you as a GM have no idea whether to allow it or not to allow it, and having a lack of a guideline within the quick start in itself, I would say, is actually a very big failure in terms of design and also planning and organizing of the quick start itself. And this is also an indicator that the quick start is a byproduct of the core rules rather than an intentionally built product that capitalizes and utilizes the quick start as a gateway product to the core rules. So this is actually something I'll be keeping my eye on, and based on our breakdown the other day, I have very little faith that this equipment will be explained in any form. So this is actually this is bad form in my perspective, unless there's something else that convinces me otherwise in the rest of the quick start and in the rest of the RPG study hour. So I'm not sure if there's any real reason to go through the rest of the other characters. I guess we can only look at things like the attributes and the focuses, but like I said, all these numbers have no meaning to us at this point in time, because we have no idea what do they signify yet, and we have no idea how good it is and how bad it is, except for the attributes which we have a range. Disciplines is also not provided. I mean, discipline numbers is relatively up and down. It fluctuates, so we have no idea as well what do they signify. But in any case, I think for the rest of the time that we have for this RPG study hour, I think I'll just briefly go through each pregen and point out if there's anything that's different from what we've discussed so far, which is highly unlikely. But in any case, I think it's at least it's good to know some things about the pregens, which will be helpful later on when we start prepping for the adventure, and then we can sort of know which character is bound to shine, and then we also know some of the motivations of the characters themselves, so we can sort of know how to include the characters as part of the adventure, rather than having this random party that joins together and then go into an adventure on themselves without any real motivations or relationship between each other. So we have the next one is the con officer. We have Lieutenant Commander Lian Zhang, trait human. So I'm guessing human is a trait is supposed to be the race of some sort. Values to fly the ship, know the ship, drive for discovery, always something to learn. Propulsion is a science, navigation, and art. Okay, so we have attributes. So control is the highest, followed by reason, and then we have daring, and then we have presence at 9, and then we have fitness at 8 and insight 8, which is actually quite high. Appears to be much higher than what we saw in the first officer, who actually has something as low as a 7. So this could be an influence from the trait, perhaps, maybe. All right, discipline, we have the highest number being at science and con. Strange as it may sound, because she's supposed to be the con officer, so it's strange to see that she has a balanced out discipline for science and con, and the lowest being command, followed by security, and then medicine, and then with engineering at 3. Her focuses are navigation, propulsion system, shuttlecraft, subspace physics, quantum mechanics, avian breeding. This is something I probably should have paid attention to. How she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She has 6 focuses, which I believe is the same number, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so I believe every character is given 6 focuses, allowed to pick 6 focuses. How significant that is, we are not really exactly sure at this point. Alright, so let's look at her talents. When you analyze or repair any technology related to flight or propulsion, you may use the con discipline instead of engineering. You use the con discipline, okay, right? So there is a difference for her to use con and engineering. It would have been really awkward if engineering was as high as con. Then it will render this particular talent useless. But it's good they at least pay attention to saying that the con should be higher than engineering because that's her main focus. Alright, bold, con. So I think there may be certain talents that are tied to the role that they choose to play. If you choose to play the con officer, they may gain certain talents. When you attempt a task involving your con skill and you buy one or more bonus d20s by adding to threat, you may reroll a single die in your dice pool. Alright, so there's this idea of buying one or more d20s and then adding it to threats, and then you may reroll a single dice in your dice pool. So if you buy, obviously more than one, then you get to reroll one of that d20s. But it comes at the cost of adding threats. So until we understand what threats are, we will see how significant this talent is in terms of its the numerical probabilities. Alright, jury rig. Whenever you attempt an engineering task to perform repairs, you may reduce the difficulty by 2, which is sounds like a significant leap compared to some of the skills from the first officer that only can reduce by 1. If you do this, however, then the repairs are only temporary and will last a single scene, plus 1 additional scene per momentum spent, repeatable before they fail again. Jury rig repairs can only be applied once. So this talent looks like it needs a breakdown. First of all, if you're performing an engineering task to perform repairs, you reduce the difficulty by 2. As a result, repairs are only temporary and only last a single scene plus 1 additional scene per momentum spent, repeatable before they fail again. Alright, so there is this. Now we are being introduced to the concept of scenes and momentum spent, and we are not exactly sure what this repeatable mean to that. So we're gonna see if there's any explanation for scenes. But I think the most important thing here it would be spending momentum and what does repeatable mean. And lastly, the last rule is jury rigs can only be applied once, so you can't jury. So that actually brings in the question about this repeatable thing. Like, is this repeatable for you to apply jury rig for it to last as long you have momentum to spend, but you have this limitation that says that you can only jury rig something once. Alright, precise evasion. Whenever you succeed an evasive action task, you may spend 2 momentum if you do the ship does not suffer the increased difficulty for attacks normally caused by the maneuver. Okay, so we are now introduced to the idea of evasive action task, which sounds like it's a space thing, like it's controlling the ship. Again, this is going to be another part where I hope this sort of task is included in the adventure itself, so we know how it works, and then this particular talent can come into action, because it seems like it actually gives a significant boost in the sense that it does not suffer increased difficulty for attacks normally caused by the maneuver. So this might be a great talent to really highlight if the players are caught in a situation involving having to use their ships. Alright, so we have computer expertise. When you attempt a task that involves the programming or study of a computer, you may add 1 bonus d20 to your pool. Now this is interesting, especially in comparison with the flight control, because the flight control allows you to switch the fixed number from 3 to 4, but in this one you are allowed to add additional dice pool. So there will always be this debate about whether it's better to have a fixed modifier or a additional chance modifier. Again, this will probably be something that I'll be interested to see once we understand what task does. Alright, so determination start with 1. We seem to have the same 3 boxes, and then stress is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it seems to be there is an additional stress box included for Lianjiang.
So I'm guessing this could be something determined by the trait or something else entirely. But it's good to note that it's good to note for, especially for players when they come in, is to make sure they count the number of stress boxes they have, which was every character doesn't have the same ones, so that's important for them. All right, so attacks, we have melee, alarm strike, melee, three challenge dice, knockdown, size 1h, not lethal, which is I think the same as the first officer. Phaser type 1 is a range 4 range for a challenge dice, size 1h charge, which I think is slightly lower than the first officer's phaser type 2, which is 5 challenge dice. Yep, correct. So that's Commander Lin Jiang. Same equipment, which is a com badge and a tricorder. Alright, let's move on to the Chief Security. Lieutenant Commander Quella Zaraf. Trait Andorian. Lead by example. Fortune favors the bold, rash, and reckless. Proud daughter of Andoria. Okay. Her attributes. So her highest being daring, with a maximum of 12, with fitness as a second. Lowest being control and reason at 8, and then insight and presence standing in between. So this one seems to be the bravest and the strongest of all the pregens I'm going to suspect. But again, the numbers we have not exactly sure how much they signify. Disciplines, we are looking at security and command having the same amount at 4, science being the lowest, and then we have medicine and engineering at 2, and then con at 3. So security, so this is another high rating shared between 2 disciplines. All right, focuses, squad tactics, fearless, hand phases, blades, starship internal security, and Klingon opera. Again, we are seeing that she has 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, she has 6 focuses as well. Klingon opera actually sounds really interesting. Would be really cool if this was actually in part of the adventure as well, but I highly doubt it. Alright, let's go into talents. Chief of Security, when you aboard a ship, you have the advantage security detachment, which represents the ship's security personnel. Okay, so this is something that is entirely outside of what the Quickstart seems to cover, which is dangerous because it seems to represent that you are being accompanied by security personnel. But what does that mean exactly? Do you get NPCs that follows you with you? Do you get additional stat boost for having NPCs with you? In perfect Star Trek tradition, does that mean these guys are red shirts? So I'm really a bit worried about seeing something like this, and the likelihood of it being covered in the rules seems very, very low. Alright, so we have bold, which is part of the security role, I believe. Whenever you attempt a task with security and buy 1 or more d20 by adding to threat, you may re-roll a single die in your die pool. Alright, so it seems like it has the same talent with the con officer, when it involves buying more dice and adding threats, and then allowing you to re-roll. Alright, coming back, follow my lead. Once per scene, when you succeed at a task during combat or another perilous situation, you may also spend 2 momentum. If you do, choose a single ally. The next task that ally attempts counts as having assistance from you using your presence plus command. Your presence plus command here being 9 plus 4, which is 13. So in order to get this special bonus, you need to spend 2 momentum, and can only use when you succeed a task during combat or another perilous situation. Combat, I can understand. There's probably like a mechanized line where it's considered combat, but perilous situation is probably going to be something that's going to be like a GM's call. It would be great if there was more guidelines provided of what is considered a perilous situation. Alright, close protection. When you make a successful attack, you may spend one momentum to protect a single ally within close range. The next attack against that ally before the start of your next turn increases in difficulty by 1. So this is also another one of those rules that needs a lot of breakdown. You have to make a successful attack. You have to spend 1 momentum to an ally within close range, and the next attack increases in difficulty by 1 before the start of your next turn. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure how initiative is ordered in Star Trek Adventures, but this is something that probably requires more tactical call to make, and we can only fully grasp the potential of this talent once we understand the conflict rules, I assume. Alright, the Ushan. You are experienced in the tradition of honor dueling known as the Ushan. When you make or defend against a melee attack and you buy 1 or more dice with threat, you may reroll your dice pool. Further, you have your own Ushan Tor. So yeah, Ushan Tor is the name of a weapon. This character seems to be built for close combat, for close encounters. Even though her focuses includes hand phases and blades. So we have the determination, also start with 1. So we have sounds like there's a standard tree. The stress looks a lot longer. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So the stress here, she has what's her name? Commander Kuelas Zaraf has 14 stress. That's a lot more higher than the first 2 that we saw, and it's not exactly sure. This could be a combination of both the trait and as well as the class, which in this case is probably the chief of security. Alright, so we have unarmed strike, which is a melee of 5 challenge dice, which is much higher than the normal ones, which is 3. Phaser type 2, which has a challenge dice of 7 challenge dice. So we don't know. This seems to be a very significant modifier that's been applied here, and we're not sure is this a result of is it the class, or there's something at work here that we are not exactly sure what's going on. But in any case, I think this makes it a very interesting character to recommend. Like in the case that if a player says I want to play the tank of the crew, then I think Lieutenant Commander Kuelas Zaraf will be a very easy choice, because given the high stress amounts and the significant increase in damage or challenge dice being used for their weapons, and equipment is the combat and tricorder. It's all the same. Okay, so next we have the Chief Engineer, Lieutenant Junior Grade Hey Nordell. Traits is a Trill Del Symbiote. Alright, so this is really testing my limits of my Trekkie knowledge, which I have no idea what this is. But it's starting to show that traits seems to be some sort of race thing. Alright, values. Test everything to its limits. For lifetimes of adventure, always pad your estimates. Love your ship like you would love a child. Is it supposed to be the engineer? Yes. Alright, so attributes, the highest being at reason, followed by insight, and then control and daring, then lastly at fitness, which still is maintained at an 8. So it seems like 7 seems to be like an exceptionally low number that that probably people try to avoid or try to pad way through. So they were the low range seems to be around the 8 or 9 range, and that's probably supposed to be the supposed average, probably, or maybe it's 10. But there are very few 12s, as you can see in the pregens that you saw so far. Alright, disciplines, engineering is at the 5, followed by science and con at 3, medicine and command at 2, and security being 1. Alright, so focuses: astrophysics, power systems, warp drive, damage reporting procedures, small craft, and oniology. Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what this is, but anyways, going to talents. When aboard the ship, Chief Engineer, when aboard the ship, you have the Advantage Engineering Department, which represents the ship complement of engineers and technicians. Join, you will have a symbiote. Once per mission, you may declare that the former host had a specific expertise. You gain a single focus for the remainder of the scene as you draw upon those memories. Okay, so that's a free focus because of having a symbiote for a scene. Alright, untapped potential. Whenever you succeed a task where you bought 1 or more additional dice with either momentum or threat, you roll 1 challenge dice. You receive bonus momentum dice equal to the total on the challenge dice. So if you recall, in the challenge dice,
there is a possible of 4 results. There is 1 and 2, there is blanks, and there is a 1 with effect. So yeah, you can receive equal to number of, so you only roll 1, so the maximum you can get is actually 2 more dice, or you could just get 1 dice, or you can get add 1 to track if an effect is rolled. So that happens if you roll a 1 with effect, which is a 5 and 6 on a normal d6. Okay, testing a theory. When you attempt a task using engineering or science, you may roll 1 additional d20 so long as you have completed a previous task covering the same scientific or technological discipline earlier in the same game session. Okay, that sounds interesting. There has to be some sort of record keeping in the sense that you have to remember what was the previous task that was covering the same scientific or technological discipline earlier. So I'm not exactly sure if scientific technological discipline here is referring to the disciplines in particular, because you have science and you have technological, which I'm guessing it could be engineering related. So I guess this could be one of those places where the GM makes a call and it's player's duty to sort of bring it up, like, is this related to what I did earlier, and therefore I get to roll the additional d20 for free. Alright, and this only lasts within the same game session. Alright, moving on. In the nick of time, whenever you succeed at an engineering or science task that is part of an extended task, so we have introduced to a new concept, extended task, you may ignore up to 2 resistance for every effect roll. So that's a lot of big words here. We have engineering and science tasks, so we need to understand what there seems to be the different types of tasks within the system. There is extended task, which is also another concept that probably needs explanation, and from what I remember as looking through the quick rules, it doesn't seem it doesn't seem that there was any point that they're talking about extended task. And 2 resistance for every effect roll, that also in itself is something that's going to need a lot more explanation to understand. Okay, so that's his talents. 3 stress, 3 determination as always. Stress here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which is 9 stress, which is in stereo. So unarmed strike is a melee of 2 challenge dice, which is lower than your average. So far that we've seen is 3, and phaser type 1 at 3 challenge dice seems to be lower than the one that I believe the con officer is able. Yeah, con officer has a phaser type 1 of 4 challenge dice. So the damage seems to be affected by something else altogether. It may not be just the equipment, it may be some sort of stat related abilities, or maybe class related abilities that determines the challenge dice that's being rolled for weapons, which is probably something to keep in mind of. But at this point, I really don't expect us to get any explanations for these. Just know that these are the numbers that they are provided for the character sheet, and that's what they represent. No questions asked. Alright, equipment, we have the combat tricorder and the additional engineering toolkit. Again, this is definitely one of those equipments that could have worked a lot more if there's some kind of explanation that comes with it, talking about what is it exactly does an engineer toolkit do and when is it being used, and is there any penalties for not having it to perform certain kind of task. But yeah, this is one of those things that really irks me when I see it, especially when it's not doing the thing I expect it to do. Alright, coming into science officer, which is our 5th character for the day. Lieutenant Natala, traits Denubulan, values are safety in numbers, the first discovery is a theoretical, serving Starfleet is a family tradition, I am the voice of the crew. So her attributes seems to be on a really high level. She has an insight and reason at 11, fitness at 10. That's a pretty strong fitness for a supposedly science officer. Control at 9, presence at 8, and daring at 7. This feels to me like the average attribute score seems to be higher than the others. So it'll be interesting to know how these numbers are derived from at some point, maybe in the core rules. Alright, so in disciplines we have science that are highest at 5. So it seems to me that probably 5 is the highest that a discipline can go, and low obviously being 1. Because I don't think at any point we have seen any disciplines that goes above 5, I believe, at this point. And it seems that all focus on science at 5, engineering at 4, and then you have con, security, and medicine being at 2, and then command staying at 1. Alright, so her focuses are anthropology, biology, quantum mechanics, sensor operations, EVA, and fencing. Number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's always 6 focuses. Fencing is a very odd choice. Maybe she has a weapon that's related to fencing, which is a no. Okay. Talents, technical expertise. Now she has 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm starting to notice that the number of talents that each character has also seems to vary. So she has 4. The chief engineer has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The chief of security seems to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes. The con officer seems to have 1, 2, 3, 4, and the first officer only seems to have 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the number of talents seems to vary as well. So it's not something that can be taken for granted. And some seems to be, you know, they have this bracket that comes in, okay? It comes in saying it seems to be belonging to a particular role in this case. So the officer here doesn't seem to be having that special role talents. But let's see what she has. Technical expertise. Whenever you attempt a task assisted by the ship's computers or sensors, you may reroll a single die in your dice pool, which may be the ship's die. Okay, so we are introducing to another concept called the ship's die, question marks. Studious. Whenever you spend 1 or more momentum to obtain information, so obtain information, we are not sure is this an action or is this a task, you may spend you may ask 1 additional question in total, not per momentum spent. Okay, so I'm guessing it's something like if you spend 1 or more momentum, you would expect to be able to ask 1 or more questions, but in this case, if you spend any amount of momentum, you can only ask 1 additional question in total. Alright, parent figure. When attempting or assisting a task and 2 or more characters are involved in the task, the first complication generated on the task may be ignored. So I think we are introduced to another new concept, complications, and then we have something like resistance earlier on. So yeah, it seems that there's going to be a lot of explanation that requires in the task section that we'll get into, and hopefully they'll answer all our questions, which sounds like it's a bit complicated at this point. Alright, I know my ship. Whenever you attempt a task to determine the source of a technical problem with the ship and add 1 bonus to 20. This is the science officer, right? Yeah, this is not exactly the engineer, so it's kind of interesting that this talent belongs to the science officer, because you expect, you know, problems to happen in the ship that's related to engineering problems or technical problems in this case. If they were any kinds of scientific problems, maybe, then yeah, it would make sense for the science officer to have this. So that only just means that there is some sort of synergy between the science officer and the engineer officer, maybe. The science officer can recognize the problem, and then it's up to the engineer to go and fix the problem. So that's a possible connection that you might want to bring up when, you know, when players are picking their characters. Alright, so determination as usual 3, stress here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So this is 12 stress. I'm having a feeling right now that it seems that anything less than 10 is supposed to be considered quite inferior, and the standard, the average is about 10, and anything above 10 seems to be, you know, on the exceptional side of things. So this science officer really has some really interesting traits, some interesting stats, especially when it comes with 10 of fitness, that may have some influence on the number of stress that can be taken. Alright, let's go into attacks. Unarmed strike, melee, 3 standard dice, challenge dice, knockdown, pretty standard stuff. Phaser type 1 range, 4 challenge dice, size 1, same. Standard, this seems to be the average, whereas there will be some exceptions, like from the con officer and the chief engineer who dedicated something else into these stats. Equipment is combat, tricolor. Alright, so we are actually running out of time. It's almost it's almost to the hour of this RPG study hour video, but I think I'll just go on a little bit just to finish up all the pregens, and then maybe have some final thoughts and closing thoughts before we for this section of the character rules before we move on into the next video. All right, so we have Medical Officer Lieutenant T. Perel. Traits Vulcan. So yeah, it seems like Vulcan's a race. So yeah, that's pretty much assuming that traits are races. Okay, values: to seek out new life. Precision and diligence are a doctor's primary tools. Hesitation is as bad as inaction. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. All right, so attributes: 11's for insight and reason. This is supposed to be a medical officer. Yeah. Daring at 10, control at 9, followed by fitness and presence at 8 and 7. Coming down into discipline, so medicine is at 5, which I'm going to assume is the new maximum. Con is the lowest at 1, and then we have security and science at 3, engineering at 2, engineering and command at 2. All right, focuses: emergency medicine, surgery, vigilance, virology, defensive tactics, murder mystery stories. This is very interesting. So it seems, and this seems to be a pattern between all these focuses that I've seen so far, is that you have the standard stuff that's probably related to their job, and then you have one of these social or maybe cultural focuses that's not related to their training, but it does give some sort of different flavor to the diverse hobbies that is available in the future, and that probably gives a bit more character to the characters themselves. But as I said, I'm hoping at some point that these focuses will come into play in the adventure in itself, and they can explain a bit further of how, as a GM, I'm supposed to prep for focuses, and as a player, how are they expected to use the focuses. All right, so talents for our Lieutenant Tipperell. First response: when attempting the first aid action task during a combat encounter, you gain a bonus d20 and you always succeed at a cost, with each complication adding +1 to the difficulty of healing the injury subsequently. So again, we introduced the concept of task, first aid task. Succeed at a cost is also something that I think we've seen for the first time, and complication adding +1 to the difficulty of healing the injury subsequently. So complication seems to have reoccurred here at this point. All right, Colinar, you have undergone the ritual journey to purge emotion. You decrease the difficulty of all tasks to resist coercion, mental intrusion, pain, and other mental attacks by 2. I think there's another similar talent with one of the pregens. There's something tied to their cultural background, and it gives them some sort of mental reprogramming of some kind, and which makes them harder to be subjected to certain types of attacks, or maybe certain type of abilities. And it would be really great if that gets a highlight within the adventure in itself, because otherwise these are just very circumstantial and very situational ability talents that, if it's not if there's no situation for them to use it, then it's practically useless. All right, quick to action: during the first round of combat, you and your allies may ignore the normal momentum cost to keep the initiative. So we're introduced to another concept of keep the initiative. I'm guessing it's some sort of combat related action and momentum cost that comes with it. All right, doctor's orders: when you attempt a task to coordinate others or to coerce someone into taking or refraining from a specific course of action, you may use your medicine discipline instead of command. Okay. So what caught my attention here is the coerce in someone into taking or refraining a specific course of action. I'm not exactly sure how is this supposed to be applied. Is this something that's applicable to only just enemies? Is it applicable to something to a crew? Or is it applicable to between characters? Because not many games, especially even the likes of D&D, can sort of have this unspoken agreement that you don't use mind control spells or mind control abilities on another player characters, because that just leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth, even though it may be allowed by the rules. So this seems to be one of those talents that falls within that very dangerous category of how it can be abused rather than being a cool talent that can be used. But in this case, it seems that it's just switching around the medicine discipline for the command. As you can see, command here is not her strongest suit at 2 compared to her medicine at 5. Alright, so determinations 3 as usual, and we have stress at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Yeah, so she has 11 stress. Let's look at her attacks. Unarmed strike at 4 challenge dice, which is higher than most. For the medical officer, she deals more damage. Phaser also deals a 5 challenge die, which is also higher. I think she is almost as high as a security officer, which is okay, not as good as a security officer. Maybe the science? No, she's better than the science officer even. What about the cons? Yep, she's even better than cons. So strangely enough, the medical officer is probably the second best combatant among the pregens here. So that's a recommendation to give for players when they start choosing characters. So that sums up all the pregens so far. After reading the character rules, there's really not much things to go on into understanding the pregens. That's a bad sign in my book. That's a really bad sign, because particular things that are not explained in any way, in any shape or form within the quick start, and for it to manifest inside the pregen materials, then it just causes a lot of anxiety, especially for GM, because they're not exactly sure what is it exactly they're dealing with, and there's no explanation for the GMs to explain to the players, and neither is there anything, and the players are most likely going to have a bit more questions than the information that they're given with. So it's a bit worrying, but I think at this point we have to give this quick start the benefit of the doubt, that we just need to move on, and maybe most of it will be explained in further sections of the rules. So it feels like it's a little bit of a disappointment as to how the characters section of the rules is presented and laid out and organized, because it seems like you're gonna have to read a bit more further. You have to tie the concepts of characters, tasks, and momentums and applications and resistances, all that together to get a fuller picture before you can actually go into the pregens themselves, which may be intentional, but it just means that there's a lot more reading that has to be done before you can really peruse or have an idea of the little materials that provided in the quick start. So this will be the second RPG study hour for Star Trek Adventures Quick Start Guide. And we've covered the basics of the character rules, the real basics of the character rules. And I will see you in the next video, where we will be going into the task section of basic operations. So this is the Questing GM signing out for now, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.